The snow fell softly through the amber glow of street lamps as David walked hand in hand with his 6-year-old daughter Sophie through downtown. It was their Friday tradition, hot chocolate at the corner cafe followed by a stroll through the decorated streets. At 34, David had built a successful investment firm, but his greatest achievement slept peacefully in the small bedroom down the hall from his each night. Sophie tugged on his coat sleeve, her bright eyes curious behind her white knit hat. "Daddy, look over there." David followed her gaze to a park bench where a young woman sat huddled against the cold. Even bundled in layers of worn clothing, she appeared to be in her late 20s. Her blonde hair peeked out from beneath a red knit scarf, and she held what looked like a small bundle close to her chest. "Daddy, why is she sleeping there?" Sophie asked with the innocent directness that only children possess. David paused, studying the scene more carefully. The woman wasn't asleep. Her eyes were open, staring ahead with a mixture of exhaustion and quiet determination. The bundle in her arms moved slightly and David realized it was an infant. "I don't think she's sleeping, sweetheart," David said gently, kneeling down to Sophie's level. "Sometimes people don't have homes to go to." Sophie's expression grew thoughtful. At 6, she was already showing signs of the compassion David tried to nurture in her. "But Daddy, it's really cold tonight. And she has a baby." David felt something tighten in his chest. 3 years ago, he had become a single father when Sophie's mother passed away from cancer. He understood the weight of caring for a child, alone, but he had been blessed with resources and support. This woman appeared to have neither. "You're right, Sophie. It is very cold." He stood up, making a decision that felt both spontaneous and completely natural. "Would you like to go talk to her?" They approached the bench slowly, David's dress shoes crunching softly in the fresh snow. The woman looked up as they neared, her body tensing defensively. Her face was thin but determined, and David could see intelligence in her tired eyes. "Excuse me," David said softly, removing his gloves. "I'm David, and this is my daughter Sophie. We couldn't help but notice you sitting here in the cold." "Don," woman's grip tightened on her bundle. "We're fine, thank you." Her voice carried a quiet dignity despite her obvious circumstances. Sophie stepped forward with the fearless kindness of childhood. "What's your baby's name?" The woman's defensive posture softened slightly when she looked at Sophie. "This is Emma. She's 3 months old." "That's a pretty name," Sophie said earnestly. "My daddy says babies need to stay warm. Are you keeping Emma warm enough?" The woman's eyes filled with unshed tears, but her voice remained steady. "I'm doing my best." David recognized the pride in her response, the same pride he had felt when people offered help during his wife's illness. He chose his next words carefully. "I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." "It's Claire." "Claire, my daughter and I were just heading home for some hot soup and warm bread. We always make too much, and it seems wasteful to let it go uneaten. Would you consider joining us? No strings attached, just a warm meal and a chance to get Emma out of this cold." Claire studied David's face, searching for any sign of ulterior motives or judgment. She found neither. What she saw was genuine concern and the kind of quiet confidence that comes from someone who has faced his own struggles. "I appreciate the offer, but we don't want to impose." Sophie stepped closer to the bench. "My mommy used to say that sharing food makes it taste better. She went to heaven when I was little, but Daddy still makes soup the way she taught him." The simple honesty in Sophie's words seemed to reach something in Claire. She looked down at baby Emma, who was beginning to stir restlessly against the cold. "Are you sure it wouldn't be any trouble?" "Positive," David said. "My car is just around the corner. What do you say?" Claire's resolve finally cracked. The combination of exhaustion, cold, and David's genuine kindness broke through her walls of self-reliance. "Okay, thank you." As they walked to David's car, he learned pieces of Claire's story. She had been a nurse at the local hospital until pregnancy complications forced her to take extended leave. When Emma was born with some health issues requiring expensive care, the medical bills consumed her savings. Her landlord had evicted her 2 weeks ago, and she had been staying in shelters when space was available. The hardest part isn't the cold or being hungry, Claire said as David helped her into the passenger seat while Sophie climbed into her car seat behind them. It's feeling invisible. People look right through you when you're in this situation. I understand more than you might think, David replied as he started the car. When my wife Sarah was sick, there were days when I felt completely alone in a crowd of people. Sometimes the kindness of one person can remind you that you're still seen. At David's home, a modest but comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood, Claire seemed overwhelmed by the simple luxury of warmth and safety. Sophie immediately appointed herself as Emma's entertainment committee, making gentle faces and soft sounds that actually made the baby smile. Over bowls of homemade chicken soup, Claire shared more of her story. She had been studying to become a nurse practitioner when her life took an unexpected turn. The baby's father had left when he learned about Emma's potential health complications. I keep telling myself this is temporary, Claire said, bouncing Emma gently on her lap. I just need to get back on my feet, find stable work, save enough for a deposit on an apartment. David listened, recognizing the determination beneath her exhaustion. What kind of nursing did you do? Pediatric ICU. I loved it. Working with children and their families during difficult times felt like my calling. Sophie looked up from her soup. Daddy, Claire takes care of sick children like Dr. Martinez took care of me when I had pneumonia. David nodded thoughtfully. His company had recently partnered with the new children's hospital across town, and he knew they were actively recruiting experienced pediatric nurses. After dinner, as Sophie played quietly with Emma on the living room floor, David approached Claire in the kitchen where she was insisting on washing dishes. Claire, I want to ask you something, and I need you to hear me out completely before you answer. She turned to face him, wariness returning to her expression. I have a guest room upstairs that's been empty since my mother-in-law moved to assisted living last year. Sophie and I would like you and Emma to stay here until you get back on your feet. No rent, no obligations, just a safe place for you and your daughter. Claire's hands stilled on the dish towel. David, I can't possibly accept that. You've already done so much, and you barely know us. You're right. I don't know your favorite color or your middle name, but I know you're a mother who would sit in the snow to keep her child warm. I know you have the training and experience to help other families going through medical crises, and I know that sometimes we all need someone to believe in us when we're struggling to believe in ourselves. Claire's tears finally came, quiet but steady. Why? Why would you do this for strangers? David glanced into the living room where Sophie was gently showing Emma a picture book, her voice soft and patient. Because 3 years ago, when Sarah was dying and I was trying to figure out how to be both mother and father to Sophie, strangers became angels. Neighbors brought meals, co-workers covered my responsibilities, and Sarah's nurses stayed late just to talk when I was scared and lost. He paused, his own voice becoming thick with emotion. I can't bring Sarah back, but I can honor her memory by making sure another mother and child have the safety and support they need. Sarah would have been the first person to open our door to you. Claire looked around the warm kitchen, then toward the living room where her daughter was experiencing the simple joy of playing with toys and being warm. For the first time in months, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Okay, she whispered. But only until I can find work and get my own place, and I insist on contributing however I can. David smiled. Actually, I might have an idea about the work situation. The new children's hospital is looking for experienced pediatric nurses. I could make some calls. 6 months later, Claire stood in her own apartment, a modest but comfortable place just 10 minutes from the hospital where she now worked as a pediatric nurse practitioner. Emma babbled happily in her high chair, healthy and thriving. Sophie visited twice a week, having appointed herself as Emma's honorary big sister. The friendship, between the two little girls had become as important to Sophie as the bond between Claire and David had become to both adults. That evening, as Claire tucked Emma into her crib, she thought about the night David and Sophie had found them on that bench. She had been at her lowest point, feeling forgotten by the world. But one man's willingness to see her humanity, combined with a little girl's innocent question, had changed everything. David had taught her that accepting help wasn't a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. That sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is allowing them to help us. And that kindness, once received, creates a ripple effect that extends far beyond the original act. Claire had returned to her calling of caring for sick children and their families, but now she did so with an even deeper understanding of what it meant to need support during the darkest times. Every day she tried to offer other families the same compassion and hope that David had shown her during that snowy night when everything changed.